The envelope was thick, official-looking, and completely unexpected. Natalie turned it over in her hands. She stood in the narrow hallway of her apartment building. Her 3-year-old daughter Lily tugged at her coat. Lily was asking for the 100th time if they could have pancakes for dinner. The return address was a law firm downtown. It was the kind with multiple names that suggested old money and serious business. Natalie's stomach dropped with the familiar dread that had become her constant companion over the past year. Another bill she couldn't pay. Another lawsuit. Another reminder that she was drowning and no one was coming to save her. "Mama, pancakes?" Lily's voice went up at the end. Else, that particular pitch meant a meltdown was imminent if Natalie didn't respond soon. "Yes, baby, pancakes." Natalie unlocked their apartment door. It was the cheap lock that barely worked, the one she'd been meaning to replace but couldn't afford to. She ushered Lily inside. "Go wash your hands while Mama reads this letter, okay?" Lily scampered off toward the bathroom. Natalie sank onto the threadbare couch that had come with the furnished apartment. She opened the envelope with shaking hands. She braced herself for demands, for threats, for yet another impossible situation she'd have to navigate alone. Instead, she found a letter informing her that the medical debt from Lily's emergency appendectomy 6 months ago, all $47,000 of it, had been paid in full by an anonymous benefactor. That her application for financial assistance had been approved retroactively. That she owed nothing. That the collections agency had been notified and all negative marks on her credit report would be removed. Natalie read it 3 times. Her vision blurred with tears she'd been holding back for months. It wasn't possible. Things like this didn't happen to people like her, single mothers barely scraping by, working 2 jobs and still coming up short every month, watching their children go without while drowning in debt that accumulated faster than she could breathe. "Mama, why are you crying?" Lily appeared in the doorway, her small face scrunched with worry. "Happy tears, sweetheart," S-band. Natalie pulled her daughter onto her lap, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. "Just very, very happy tears." But as the shock faded, questions flooded in. Who would pay that kind of money for her? She had no family. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 19. She'd been alone since then, except for Lily's father, who'd disappeared the moment he'd learned about the pregnancy. She had friends, but none with that kind of wealth. Her coworkers at the diner where she waited tables could barely afford their own bills, let alone someone else's. Anonymous benefactor. The phrase felt strange, almost sinister. Because people didn't just give away $50,000 without wanting something in return. Natalie made pancakes on autopilot, her mind racing through possibilities. She put Lily to bed with stories and songs. Then she pulled out her laptop, the ancient thing that took 5 minutes to boot up, and searched for the law firm listed on the letter. Morrison, Chen and Associates. High-end, corporate, with offices in 3 states. Definitely not the kind of firm that handled charity cases. On the states. She called the number listed, fully expecting voicemail at 8 p.m. Instead, a woman answered on the second ring. "Morrison, Chen and Associates, how may I direct your call?" Natalie's voice caught. "I received a letter today about medical debt that was paid. I need to know who paid it. I need to understand. Your name, please?" "Natalie Morrison," a letter was about. "One moment." The line went silent, then clicked through. A man's voice, older, professionally friendly. "Ms. Morrison, I'm James Chen. I'm glad you received our letter." "Who paid my debt?" Natalie demanded, abandoning politeness. "I need to know. I need to understand why." A pause, weighted with consideration. "The benefactor wishes to remain anonymous. However, they wanted you to know that this was done without expectation of repayment or obligation. You owe nothing." "That's not possible." "Nobody does this out of kindness." "What do they want from me?" "Nothing, Miss Morrison." "I assure you." "Then why?" Her voice cracked. "Why would someone do this?" Another pause, longer this time. "I'm not at liberty to discuss the benefactor's motivations. But I can tell you that you were specifically chosen. That this was done because someone believes you and your daughter deserve better than what you've been dealt. That's all I can say. The call ended with assurances she could contact them with questions. There were confirmations that everything was legal and legitimate. Natalie sat in her quiet apartment and felt the weight of impossible generosity pressing down on her chest. Someone was watching her. Knew about Lily's surgery, about her struggles, about the debt crushing her. Someone with significant resources and apparently no interest in claiming credit. It should have felt like a blessing. Instead, it felt like a trap. The second envelope arrived a week later. This time it was delivered by courier to the diner where Natalie worked the breakfast shift. Inside was a notice that her apartment building had been purchased by a new management company. All existing leases would be honored. Her rent was being reduced by 60% effective immediately. Natalie nearly dropped the coffee pot she was holding. "You okay, hun?" Osbakan. Rita, the other morning waitress, caught her elbow. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I need to make a call." Natalie handed off the pot and rushed to the back, dialing the management company with shaking fingers. The conversation was brief and confirmed what the letter said. New owner, new policies, reduced rent for all tenants. When Natalie pressed for information about the owner, she was told only that it was a private investment firm. No name, no further details. She knew, though. Knew with bone-deep certainty that the same person who'd paid her medical debt had just bought her buildings. Was systematically removing the obstacles that made her life a grinding struggle for survival. And she had no idea who they were or what they wanted in return. The third incident was what finally broke her careful composure. Natalie arrived at the diner for her evening shift and found her manager, Dave, waiting with an expression that meant trouble. "Nat, we need to talk." Her stomach dropped. She couldn't afford to lose this job. She couldn't handle another crisis. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," clawing them. "That's the weird part." Dave ran a hand through his thinning hair. "Some guy came in today, said he was interested in buying the diner. Offered me twice what it's worth, cash deal, but with one condition, that I keep all existing staff and give them all raises. 20% across the board." Natalie gripped the counter for support. "What did you say?" "I said yes, obviously, or to be an idiot to turn that down." "But Nat," his eyes were concerned, "the guy specifically asked about you, Alexei. Wanted to make sure you'd be staying on, that you'd get the raise." It was weird as hell. "You know this guy? Some rich ex-boyfriend or something?" "No." The word came out too forcefully. "I don't know anyone with that kind of money." But she was lying, because she'd figured it out. The pattern was too specific, too focused on her life, to be coincidence. Someone was orchestrating this, removing her problems with surgical precision. And there was only one person she could think of who had the resources and interest to do something like this. Alexei Volkov. She'd met him exactly once, 3 months ago, under circumstances she'd tried hard to forget. Lily had wandered away from Natalie at the grocery store. It was just for a moment, just while Natalie was distracted by her phone, trying to calculate if she could afford both milk and bread that week. She'd looked up to find her daughter gone. She'd felt her heart stop. She'd started to scream Lily's name while panic clawed at her throat. Then a man had appeared, carrying Lily in his arms. The child had been chattering happily about the nice man who'd helped her find the cookies she'd been looking for. Natalie had snatched Lily back, terror making her rough. She'd looked up to thank the stranger. She'd found herself staring at the most dangerous-looking man she'd ever seen. He'd been wearing an expensive suit, even in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon. His dark hair was silvered at the temples. His face was hard planes and sharp edges. But his eyes, gray, intense, completely focused, had been gentle when they looked at Lily. "She's fine," he'd said, his accent subtle but unmistakable. Russian, Natalie had thought. Just got a little lost. But brave girl, she wasn't crying. She was going to ask the cashier for help. Forgettal. "Thank you," Natalie had managed, her voice shaking. "Thank you so much. I looked away for 1 second. "I know, Carice." Children are fast. He'd smiled, and it had transformed his face from intimidating to almost kind. Your daughter? Yes. Lily, of Natalie. Natalie had pulled her daughter closer. Say thank you to the man, Lily. Thank you, Lily had beamed at him. You're really tall, of this. He'd laughed, a genuine sound that seemed surprised out of him. You're very observant. His eyes had moved to Natalie, assessing. You're all right? Not too shaken? I'm fine. We're fine. Line. Natalie had been backing away, suddenly aware of how expensive his suit was, how out of place he looked in their neighborhood grocery store. Thank you again. Murray left. She'd left quickly, shaking with residual adrenaline and shame at her moment of inattention. She'd put the incident out of her mind, filed it away under close calls, and tried to be more vigilant. Now, standing in the diner with Dave's words echoing in her head, she realized that brief encounter had been anything but forgotten. At least not by Alexei Volkov. Because she'd heard the name since then, whispered in the break room at the diner, mentioned on local news reports about real estate development and business acquisitions. Alexei Volkov, who owned half the city's commercial property. Alexei Volkov, who was rumored to have connections to organized crime, though nothing had ever been proven. Alexei Volkov, who was known for being ruthless in business and generous to carefully selected charities. Alexei Volkov, who had apparently decided Natalie and Lily were his new charity project. The realization made her hands shake with a mixture of gratitude and fury. She didn't want to be someone's charity case. Didn't want to owe this man, this dangerous, powerful man, for the relief she'd been feeling over the past week. Didn't want to wonder what he'd expect in return, what payment he'd eventually demand for his generosity. She made it through her shift on autopilot, her mind churning with anger and confusion. When she got home, she put Lily to bed. Then she did something reckless. She looked up Alexei Volkov's business address and decided she was going to confront him. Tomorrow. First thing, Buckharge. She was going to march into his office and demand answers. Demand to know why he'd inserted himself into her life without permission. Demand to know what he wanted from her. She was going to tell him to stop. Even if a traitorous part of her whispered that she didn't want him to stop. That the relief of having her debt paid and her rent reduced and her job secured felt like finally being able to breathe after drowning for so long. Even if she was terrified of what it might mean to reject help she so desperately needed. The Volkov building was everything Natalie expected. Gleaming glass and steel, doormen in suits, a lobby that probably cost more than her entire apartment building. She felt profoundly out of place in her waitress uniform. She was carrying a diaper bag with cartoon characters on it because she'd had to bring Lily along. Her daughter's daycare had called in sick. Natalie couldn't afford to miss another day of work just to yell at a man who'd been helping her. So here she was, 3-year-old in tow, about to confront a man who might be connected to the Russian Mafia about his unsolicited charity. The receptionist looked at her with barely concealed disdain. Do you have an appointment? No. Natalie lifted her chin. Powers. But I need to see Alexei Volkov. It's important. Mr. Volkov doesn't see people without appointments. Those potholes. If you'd like to schedule, tell him Natalie Morrison is here. Natalie's voice was louder than she'd intended, sharp with desperation, with Makey. Tell him it's about the medical debt he paid, and the building he bought, and the diner he acquired. Tell him I know what he did, and I need to talk to him. Now. The receptionist's expression shifted from disdain to calculation. She picked up the phone, had a brief quiet conversation, then looked at Natalie with new wariness. Mr. Volkov will see you. Top floor, all in time. The elevator requires a key card. I'll send someone down. A man in a suit appeared within minutes, silent and professional, leading them to a private elevator. Lily was delighted by the ride. She pressed her face against the glass to watch the city drop away beneath them. Natalie held her daughter's hand too tightly. She tried to remember the speech she'd rehearsed last night, the careful words about boundaries and obligation and unwanted interference. All of it fled her mind when the elevator doors opened directly into Alexei Volkov's office. He was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city. He turned when they entered, and Natalie saw recognition flash across his face, followed by surprise, then something softer. Concern, maybe. Miss Morrison. His voice was exactly as she remembered, deep and controlled. I wasn't expecting you. I'm sure you weren't. Natalie's anger came flooding back. You expected to just, play guardian angel without me ever finding out? Buy my problems away and never have to actually face me? His eyebrows rose fractionally. I take it you received the letters from my attorneys, of healths. I received a lot of things. Natalie was aware she was nearly shouting. She was aware that Lily was watching with wide eyes. She forced herself to lower her voice. Medical debt paid. Rent reduced. My job suddenly secure with a raise I didn't earn. All very generous. All completely inappropriate. Inappropriate. Alexei repeated the word like he was tasting it. I paid money you couldn't afford, reduced rent you were struggling with, improved a job that wasn't paying you fairly. Which part of that is inappropriate? The life. The part where you did it without asking me. The part where you think you can just insert yourself into my life because you have money and I don't. Natalie felt tears pricking her eyes and hated herself for it. The part where I don't know you and now I owe you everything and I don't know what you want in return. The silence that followed was heavy, charged. Alexei moved closer, his movements careful like he was approaching something wounded and frightened. I want nothing in return. That's not possible. And Somalia. Nobody does this for nothing. I do. He stopped a few feet away, giving her space. Our way. Miss Morrison, Natalie. I helped you because you needed help, and because I could provide it. That's all. Why? The question came out broken. Why me? Why me? Why us? Alexei's gaze moved to Lily, who had wandered over to the windows and was pressing her small hands against the glass. Gospel. Something painful flickered across his expression. Because 3 months ago I watched your daughter wander away from you in a grocery store. I saw the moment you realized she was gone, saw the terror on your face. And I thought. He stopped, his jaw working. I thought about what it would mean to lose a child. About how precious that little girl is, how much you love her. About how you're doing everything alone, struggling with debts and dangers you shouldn't have to face by yourself. So you decided to fix my life? Like I'm some project? Natalie's voice cracked. No. I decided to help someone who deserved help. Who was working herself to exhaustion, who was drowning in debt from her daughter's medical emergency, who was one crisis away from losing everything. Alexei's voice gentled. Natalie, I know what it's like to be alone. To feel like the world is crushing you and no one cares enough to help. I have resources. Why shouldn't I use them to make your life better? Because I didn't ask for it. The tears were falling now, hot and furious. Because I've been taking care of myself and Lily just fine without. You've been surviving. His correction was soft but firm. Barely. Working 2 jobs, choosing between groceries and heating, lying awake at night worrying about debt collectors. That's not fine, Natalie. That's torture. She wanted to argue, to insist he was wrong. But he wasn't. Every word was true, and hearing it laid out so plainly made something crack open in her chest. I don't want to owe you. You don't owe me anything. Alas. Alexei took another step closer. I didn't do this to create obligation. I did it because... He stopped, seeming to struggle with words, anew. Because when I saw you that day, saw how much you loved your daughter, how terrified you were at almost losing her, I saw something I wanted to protect. Something good and real in a world that's usually neither of those things. You don't know me. I'd like to, Dunfring. The admission hung between them, weighted with meaning. If you'll let me, Natalie stared at him, this dangerous man with his expensive suit, and his gray eyes that held shadows she couldn't read. I don't understand what you want. I want to be part of your life. Yours and Lily's. Alexei glanced at the little girl, still enthralled by the view. I want to take you to dinner, to hear about your day, to know that when you have a problem, I'm someone you can call. I want... He drew a breath. I want to stop being alone. And I think maybe you do too. It was too much, too fast. Countess. Natalie felt like the ground had shifted under her feet. I'm a waitress with a 3-year-old and a 10th grade education. You're this. Well, she gestured at the office, at the city below. We don't make sense. Maybe not on paper. Alexei's voice was quiet. Hawkins, but I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since that day in the grocery store. About your daughter's smile, about the way you held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. About how strong you must be to keep going when everything is against you. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. Oh, I'm not asking you to marry me, Natalie. I'm just asking you to have dinner with me. To let me know you better. To give this, whatever this is, a chance. And if I say no? Natalie's voice was barely a whisper. Bills. What happens to the debt payments, the rent reduction, the job security? Nothing changes. His answer was immediate, firm. Bills weren't conditional. They're gifts, not leverage. You can walk out of here right now, tell me to leave you alone forever, and I'll respect that. But your debts stay paid. Your rent stays reduced. Your job stays secure. Pays. Because you deserve those things regardless of whether you want me in your life. The sincerity in his voice nearly broke her. Oh, because he meant it. She could see it in his eyes, in the careful way he held himself, in the respect he was showing for her autonomy, even while making his interest clear. Mama? Lily appeared at Natalie's side, tugging at her hand. I'm hungry. Can we have lunch? I'm lame. Alexei's expression transformed at the interruption, softening into something almost tender. Lunch is an excellent idea. With him. What do you like to eat, Lily? Mac and cheese. The declaration was enthusiastic, immediate. I know a place that makes the best mac and cheese in the city. Alexei looked at Natalie, a question in his eyes. If your mother says it's okay. Natalie felt the weight of the moment, the decision point. She could refuse, could take Lily and leave, could reject this entire impossible situation. Could go back to her life of struggling alone, of being too proud to accept help even when it was desperately needed. Or she could take a chance on this man who'd seen her at her most terrified and decided she was worth protecting. Who'd spent significant money and resources to make her life better without expecting anything in return. Who was looking at her daughter with the kind of gentle attention that suggested he'd actually listen when Lily talked about her day. Who wouldn't treat a child like an inconvenience to be tolerated. Okay, Natalie whispered. Lunch. But we're taking my car, and if this turns out to be some weird, if I do anything that makes you uncomfortable, you leave. Alexei's promise was solemn. No questions, no consequences. I just want to know you, Natalie. That's all. On the Sama, they had lunch at a small Italian place that Natalie never would have found on her own. It was tucked into a side street with no sign and apparently no listed phone number. But the owner greeted Alexei by name, led them to a private table, and brought out plates of food that made Lily's eyes go wide with delight. Natalie watched her daughter charm Alexei with stories about preschool and her favorite cartoons. She watched this powerful, dangerous man listen to a 3-year-old like she was saying the most important things in the world. And she felt something in her chest loosen, some tightly held fear she'd been carrying since Lily's father had disappeared. Maybe she didn't have to do everything alone. Maybe letting someone help wasn't weakness. Maybe this impossible, terrifying thing could actually work. After lunch, after Lily had fallen asleep in the car on the way home, after Alexei had carried the child inside and laid her gently on the bed, Natalie found herself standing with him in her small kitchen. I know what you did for us, she said quietly, and I understand now why you did it. But Alexei, she looked up at him, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't make me feel like a charity case. Don't fix everything without asking. I need to feel like I'm contributing, like this is a partnership if it's going to be anything. Her voice was steady despite the fear. "Well, I've been alone for a long time. I've had to be strong, had to handle everything myself. I can't just become someone you take care of. I need to be more than that." Alice. Alexei reached out, his hand cupping her face with surprising gentleness. "You are so much more than that. Oh, you're..." He stopped, searching for words. "You're the woman who works 2 jobs and still finds energy to play with her daughter every night. Who budgets down to the penny but always makes sure Lily has what she needs. Who was terrified when you walked into my office but came anyway because you needed answers." His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. "Oh, you're extraordinary, Natalie. And I want to be worthy of you. Not the other way around." She kissed him before she could second-guess it, rising on her toes to press her lips against his. He responded immediately, his other hand coming up to frame her face, the kiss gentle and deep and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Natalie saw everything she'd been afraid to hope for written in his expression: devotion, respect, the beginning of something that might be love. "Stay for dinner?" she asked. "It's just going to be spaghetti and frozen meatballs, but I'd love to." Alexei's smile was brilliant. "Though I should warn you, I'm not very good at cooking. You might have to teach me." "I think I can handle that." "Bandles." Natalie took his hand, threading their fingers together. "Fair warning though, Lily's going to want to watch Frozen again. She's seen it approximately 400 times. Then tonight will be my 401st viewing." He squeezed her hand gently. "I'm looking forward to it." They made dinner together, Natalie directing while Alexei followed her instructions with focused attention. Lily woke up and was delighted to find their lunch companions still there. She launched immediately into a dramatic retelling of the movie she'd watched that morning. Alexei listened with the same attention he'd brought to business meetings, asking questions and making Lily giggle with his exaggerated reactions. Watching them together, Natalie felt tears prick her eyes again, but this time from joy rather than fear. Because this man, this dangerous, powerful, impossible man, was making her daughter feel special. Was making Natalie feel seen and valued and protected in ways she'd never experienced. After dinner, after Lily was in bed, Natalie and Alexei sat together on the couch. It was the same threadbare piece of furniture she'd sat on when reading the first letter about her paid debt. But everything felt different now, transformed by understanding and the beginning of something neither of them wanted to name yet but both felt growing between them. "I meant what I said," Alexei spoke into the comfortable silence. "About wanting to be part of your life. Both your lives," a little said. He glanced toward Lily's room. "I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. But Natalie, I haven't felt this alive, this present, in years. Not since." He stopped, pain flickering across his features. "Tell me." Natalie turned to face him fully. "Boxes. Whatever it is you're not saying. I need to know who you are, not just what you do." So he told her. About the daughter he'd lost to cancer when she was 5 years old. About the wife who'd left because she couldn't look at him without seeing their dead child. About the decades of building an empire to fill the emptiness where his family had been. About how he'd seen Natalie and Lily in that grocery store and felt something crack open in his chest. Grief and longing and the terrible hope that maybe he could have a second chance at the family he'd lost. "I'm not trying to replace my daughter with Lily," he said carefully. "But when I see her smile, when I hear her laugh, it reminds me why any of this matters. Why building businesses and making money and all the rest of it is just emptiness without people to share it with." Natalie reached for his hand, holding it between both of hers. "I can't promise this will work, darling. I can't promise I won't panic and push you away when it gets hard. But I can promise." She drew a breath. "I can promise I'll try to given us so much. And I think I'd like to give you something back. A family. If you want it. I want it." The words were fierce, immediate. More than anything. They sat together until late, talking about logistics and fears and hopes. Excess. About how they'd introduce this relationship to Lily gradually. How they'd navigate the vast differences in their backgrounds and resources. about what it meant to build something real from this strange, impossible beginning. When Alexei finally left, after a kiss that promised more, after assurances they'd see each other tomorrow, Natalie locked the door and leaned against it with tears streaming down her face. But this time, they were purely happy tears. 3 months later, Natalie walked into the diner for her final shift. She'd given notice 2 weeks ago. She'd explained to Dave that she was going back to school, getting her GED, then starting college courses, paid for by a scholarship fund that Alexei had quietly arranged through his businesses. She'd fought him on it at first, still wary of accepting too much help. But he'd pointed out that investing in education for single mothers was good business and good karma. He'd said she'd be helping others by being the first recipient. She'd accepted, with the understanding that she'd spend her summers working for his company's charitable foundation. She'd help identify other families who needed the kind of intervention he'd provided for her. "Gonna miss you, Nat," Rita said, pulling her into a hug. "Place won't be the same without you. You'll visit, though. Bring Lily around. I promise." Natalie squeezed her friend tight. Self. "And thank you. For everything." The shift passed in a blur of goodbyes and well wishes. Found her. When Natalie finally hung up her apron for the last time, she found Alexei waiting in his car outside. He was just as he'd promised, just as he'd been waiting every night for the past 3 months. "How was it?" he asked as she climbed in. "Bittersweet." Natalie buckled her seatbelt. "Ready?" "Always." He reached over to take her hand. "Lily's with Elena, right? My sister is probably spoiling her outrageously. With Macon." "Probably." Natalie smiled. "Your family has been so kind to us." "Your family now." Alexei said it like it was simple, obvious. Alexei. "They see what I see, that you and Lily make me happy in ways I didn't think were possible anymore." "Of course they're kind to you." They drove through the city in comfortable silence. Natalie watched the lights blur past. So much had changed in 3 months, to blows. Her debt was gone. Her apartment was secure. She had a future that looked like something other than endless struggling with mate. But more than that, she had Alexei, solid and steady and devoted in ways that still amazed her. Had his family, welcoming her and Lily into their complicated, loud, loving fold. Had a sense of belonging she'd never experienced before. "I've been thinking," Alexei said as they pulled up to her building, "about what you said when you first confronted me. About not wanting to be a charity case, about needing to be a partner. Okay?" Natalie turned to look at him, curious about his serious tone. "I'd like you to move in with me. You and Lily both." He spoke quickly, like he'd been planning this speech. "Maya. Not because your apartment isn't good enough, or because I'm trying to take over. But because I'm alone in a massive penthouse that echoes, and you're crammed into a 1-bedroom with a toddler, and it seems inefficient for us to maintain 2 residences when we spend every evening together anyway." Natalie felt her heart race. "Alexei, before you answer, let me finish." He cupped her face gently. "I'm also asking you to marry me. Not now, I know it's too soon. But eventually. When you're ready. Because I love you, Natalie. I love you, Natalie. I love your strength and your stubbornness, and the way you light up when Lily does something new. I love that you make me want to be better, to deserve the trust you've given me. And I love Lily like she's my own daughter, which I hope someday she can be legally." Tears were streaming down Natalie's face, but she was smiling. "I love us. You love us." Desperately. His own eyes were bright. "So what do you say? Move in with me? Let me wake up to you and Lily every morning? Let me be the family you both deserve?" "Yes." The word came out choked with joy. That choked. "Yes to all of it. Moving in, marriage eventually, all of it." "Yes." He kissed her then, deep and promising, and Natalie felt the last of her walls crumble. Because this man had seen her at her lowest and decided she was worth everything. Hayes had paid her debts and secured her future without expecting anything in return. Had loved her daughter like his own before ever asking for a place in their lives. He'd saved them. Not just financially, but in every way that mattered. When they finally broke apart, Alexei rested his forehead against hers. And wait, I should tell you something. About the debt, about everything I did. I know what you did for us. Natalie's voice was soft, certain. Us future. You gave us a future. You gave us hope. You gave us you. I was selfish. His admission was rough. And Wopany. I needed you both as much as you needed help. Maybe more. Then we saved each other. Natalie kissed him again, soft and sweet. And that's the best kind of rescue. They sat in the car for a long time, making plans and promises. While the city hummed around them, while somewhere above, Lily was probably convincing Alexei's sister to read her one more story before bed. And Natalie thought about the woman she'd been 3 months ago, drowning in debt, exhausted and afraid, choosing between groceries and heating. Thought about how she'd walked into Alexei's office with anger and tears, demanding to know why he'd helped her. Now she knew. He'd helped because he was lonely and she was desperate, and somehow they'd found exactly what they both needed in each other. A second chance at family. At love. At believing that good things could happen to people who deserved them. Thank you, she whispered against his lips. For everything, warts his. For seeing us. For caring enough to help. Thank you for letting me. Alexei's voice was thick with emotion. For giving me a reason to be more than just the man who survived his grief. For making me a father again. For letting me love you. And in that moment, in the quiet of the car with the man who'd changed her life sitting beside her, Natalie felt something she hadn't felt in years. She felt safe. She felt loved. She felt home. And it was more than she'd ever dared to dream.